Cathryn here. Welcome to my live about writing a book, especially if it's for your business. It can be an absolutely wonderful thing to do. Now, I don't know if that got my first few seconds. So I'm Cathryn Mora, once again, just in case that got cut off. And I'm here to talk about how you can get your book started and just some information you might want to know about writing your book, self-publishing versus publishing. I can answer any questions and I'll also just give you the information that most people tend to want to know when they're getting started or when they've started but they've gotten stuck. So the first thing is I'm mainly going to talk about non-fiction books. I love fiction, I love novels, I've written one myself, I have a few more planned, but they're a bit more of a passion project for me. I work with non-fiction because that's where the people that I work with tend to play. So we've got coaches, speakers, entrepreneurs, people who want to be thought leaders. Drop me a note in the comments if you've thought about writing a book and what kind of book you would like to write, or maybe what it is that you do. And I can give you some ideas on how you can use your book to raise your profile and raise your prices. Now, I will say writing a book is not something that is quick and easy, at least not writing a quality book, but it's something that you'll never regret and you will always be glad that you did. I know with my first book, I had put it aside and spent a long time trying to write it and doing a bit here and doing a bit there. And eventually my husband had said to me, gee, you don't want to wake up at 70 and say, damn, I wish I'd written that book. And he was so right, because I don't know about you, but I don't want to have regrets about what I haven't done. So although I love novels, as I said, the reason I work with non-fiction is they're the best way that you can raise your profile, be seen as an expert in your industry, be the go-to person in your industry. And I think it's because there's something still so special about an author in people's eyes. If they see your book, particularly if it's designed well, it looks great, if they open it and the first few pages sound great, people automatically put you a little bit up on that author pedestal, because they're still impressed by the time and effort they know that it's taken you to write the book and the commitment that it's taken, and it automatically puts you in a new category. I interviewed an author this morning. I'm doing a series of author interviews with best-selling authors just to get all their secrets. And she said that since she wrote her book, she's been getting speaking gigs left, right and centre. She's even getting online gigs now that obviously in-person gigs have changed a little bit. But she said that she sends a copy of her book to an event manager and she has almost a 100% success rate in securing paid speaking gigs after she sends them her book. So let me know in the comments if you want to do speaking. I'm just going to do a test comment. All right, just to make sure that it's working. I often have issues with this sort of thing. So yeah, definitely if you want to do speaking, if you want to be in the media, if you want to do podcasts. And books are such a great way to get you in front of those people because it gives you that credibility and gives you something to talk about. Now, I actually worked in marketing and media for 15 years before I trained as a coach and before I wrote my book and then before I created the book coaching business. And, you know, having that book gives you sort of an edge. You don't write your media release about the book, as in, you know, you don't write, hello media person, Cathryn has written this book and we would like you to talk about it. There are other ways you go about that, but they give you the credibility to go on and talk about your topic of expertise. So that's the beauty of a book. They're absolutely amazing. Most of my clients do coaching or speaking or both. Those who were already speaking doubled their fees in some cases, got a lot more gigs in other cases. Those who were speaking either cheaply or free were getting paid more, and those who hadn't started speaking yet started speaking. So a book can make all the difference. Now, if you were to jump onto Facebook and say, I want to write a book, where do I start? Inevitably, a handful of people will say to you, just start writing. Now, as much as I love their enthusiasm for helping you, it is the worst advice ever. Because if you just start writing, I can guarantee that you will get writer's block, you'll get confused, you'll ramble, you'll go off on tangents, you'll leave things out. The best way to get started is actually, before you write, there are basically 5 steps that I suggest taking. So the first one is to get very clear on your objective for writing the book. That means, what's the book going to do for you, not what's it going to do for the reader, because obviously with the reader, you want to inspire them, educate them, teach them about a certain topic. Maybe if it's your memoir, you want to let them know about you want to inspire them, change their lives. All of that's a bit of a given. So I'm talking about your objective for you in writing the book. In other words, do you want to use it as a lead magnet, a free lead magnet, a paid lead magnet as part of one of those mini purchase funnels? Do you want to use it to get speaking gigs? Do you want to use it to get more clients? Do you want it to charge? Do you want to use it to charge more for clients? So for your coaching or services or whatever it is that you do. You know, there are lots of different ways that you can use your book, and that's something you need to get clear on right up front. That's the very first thing I do in the first session with my clients, and, you know, my free challenges and things like that, is always getting clear on how you'll use the book, because a book can be a strategic tool to grow your business. And with the best-selling authors I've spoken to so far, and my own clients, that's been a key thing to their growth. One of my clients who I spoke to yesterday, actually, she's writing her second book with me now, and she actually said that she has doubled her income every quarter since her book came out nearly a year ago. So absolutely incredible. She's also definitely got more clients and more exposure, was offered speaking gigs, media, was asked to come onto podcasts. What else happened? She got picked up. She self-published and then got picked up by a New York publisher wanting to republish her book. And then she was offered representation by the agent of her absolute idol, who she would like to be like, to rep her for the second book, the one that she's now writing with me. So there's a lot of opportunity there. You just need to get clear on how you're going to use your book. So that's step one. Step two is to get clear on your topic, your theme, what you're going to talk about. So let me know in the comments if this is a common thing for you, that perhaps you know you want to write a book, but you actually can't decide what to write about. It's like you can feel the book in you, but you just want to get clear on the exact topic and the exact breadth of information that you want to cover. That's really normal, and that's what happens when you have quite a wide variety of knowledge and information. You've got to work out how to narrow it down. So the easiest way to do that is to think about what it is you want to be talking about for the next 2 years in your business, or if you're speaking. Because the book that you publish, once it's out, and that won't be obviously now, if you started it now, it would be anywhere from 6 to 12 months before you get that book out, depending on if you get help or how quickly you do it, etc. And then 2 years from then, you potentially can still be talking about that topic, teaching that topic, working around that topic. So whatever that topic is where your book would need to be focused. So as an example, I had a client who was a naturopath. She'd been a naturopath for 10 years, absolutely incredible woman. She'd helped many, many people over those 10 years. But when she came to me, she said, as much as I love naturopathy, I don't want to be talking to people about what foods they're allergic to and what they should be eating and that kind of thing for the next few years. She had moved more into the territory of women's empowering women and, you know, femininity and sensuality and all of these sorts of things. And she'd really grown herself and developed herself, and that's what she was getting excited about working with. So we agreed that if she wrote a book about, you know, Naturopathy 101, she'd be attracting more people who want to talk about their food choices for the next 2 to 3 years, right? So instead, we made the book much more about, you know, the types of women's issues that she wanted to work with. Now, some of those were what I'd call a stretch topic. In other words, they were fairly new to her, but that's okay, because a book will teach you what you already know. You'll remind yourself what you know, and you'll be surprised what you know when you start committing it to writing. It will also allow you to do some research to expand what you know, and that's how you'll start moving up into that new area you want to work in. So that's what she did with her book. So you need to think about what area you want to be in for the next few years. Now, as a side note to that, I will say one of the fears that people have with writing a book is that they will get pigeonholed and they will get stuck in that area. But that's not the case at all. And the other, and related to that, people who think, I just need to know this, this, and this before I'm qualified enough to write a book. If you're anything like me or just about any other entrepreneur I know, you will never think that you know enough. You'll never stop learning. You'll never stop growing. So that end point when you're finally happy, I think will never come, because you'll always be wanting to do something else, learn something else, grow, change, move on and expand. And so you'll never feel like you're enough to write that book. And I think that's really common. Yes, Alma's filling me on that. You'll never feel like it's enough. It's a bit like when people say, when I make this much money, I'll be happy. Or when I lose this weight, I'll be happy. You know, you lose that weight, you make that money, and then you find something else that you're not happy about, right? And that's why we can't base our happiness on those things. And by the same token, if you wait and wait and wait and wait to write your book, A, until you're enough, or B, until you have time, you'll never have time and you'll never be enough in your head, right? Of course you're enough, but I'm talking about your own self-talk. So something that my client Carly said to me when she was writing her first book is, this book represents who I am right now at this moment in time, what I know now, what I want to teach now, what I love now, and I reserve the right to change my mind and to grow. Okay, now that's brilliant, because all of those people who are feeling stuck, I would tell them that and they'd say, oh my gosh, that's so true. Because when you think about it, in 5 years time, there's oh, that's brilliant, let me know how it's going. In 5 years time, when you have definitely moved on from what you're doing, not in that you're not necessarily working in that field, but you've probably grown with your beliefs and your knowledge and all of that, right? In 5 years time, you're way past what you wrote in the book today. But it's the people in 5 years who are where your current readers and clients are that are still going to benefit from the book. So in the future, there are people who right now are way behind where you are. So in 5 years time, when you've moved on, they will be where you are now, if that makes sense. So there's always someone who's going to benefit from the knowledge that you have today, regardless of where you are in your journey and your knowledge. Yeah, exactly. So I will get on to writing schedules as well. So that's brilliant, Ariana. So definitely getting clear on what you want to write about. And then the third step would be who that audience is and how you connect with them. Because one of the important things when you're writing a book is to actually talk about it as you're writing it, as you go. Do a selfie, here's me writing. So if you're Ariana, you'd say, here's me writing 1,000 words today. And if you're Alma, here's me working on my book. Here's me with my coffee working on my book. Here's me, you know, doing this. Oh, today I didn't write very much, but I still sat at my desk because I'm committed to my book. And then another day you can say, oh, today I'm writing, you know, a chapter in my book about the time that I did blah, 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 whatever it is. Or today I'm talking about self-worth, and it reminds me of all the women I talk to who are lacking self-worth, and then this is how they feel, and then this is what I say to them, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's such a powerful message. I can't wait to get this book out. And the reason you do that is to build your audience without selling to them. So you're not selling, you're talking about what you're doing and what you're passionate about. And therefore, someone says, oh my gosh, I have to read that when it's done. You go separately to a little list that you're going to keep, and you write, you know, Jane Smith, and on that list, right? And she's probably your friend on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. And then all along the whole journey of writing, editing, book cover design, everything you do, if you talk about it on your socials, every time someone says they're interested, you write their name down because you'll need it later. But the beautiful thing is, it's creating this awareness that you're writing a book, you're becoming an author, you're an expert, you're committing to writing a book, you're dedicated to your craft, etc. So in people's minds, they start seeing you differently when you're writing a book, I guarantee it. So the third thing, as I said, was to keep your audience in mind. The fourth thing that I always do with my clients is to write an outline. Actually, that's really the fifth thing. Let's say write an outline. because if you start with a blank page, you'll get very confused and you'll wander, etc. And I think I mentioned that earlier in the video, that you want to be organized so that when you sit down, you know exactly what you're going to write about. So, you know, it might be 10 chapters, 12 chapters, 15 chapters. If you're writing a self-help book, with a memoir, you can really go up to 20 chapters. In fact, with self-help, you can go longer as well. But these days, a lot of people are writing 10 to 15 chapters. It depends on what kind of thickness book you want to go for. And there are different ways of structuring that, because you might tell stories within your self-help, and I recommend that you do, because your reader loves stories to demonstrate, you know, what you know. And you can have 12 chapters, let's say, that are in chronological order of the story. So maybe each chapter has a significant story, and then the learnings and the application of what you learned from that story or your client's story. And the book can build based on those stories. Or perhaps the topics build and the stories that demonstrate them are random. So there are different ways of approaching it, but whichever way you do it, I do strongly suggest writing the outline first, because that is how you get clear on what the journey is for the reader. And if you don't get clear on that, your reader won't be clear either. And, you know, some people write chapters that are all standalone, and other people write chapters that build on each other. And either are fine. I personally like them to build, because I think you want to encourage the reader to keep going. But if you've ever read those dummies books or idiots guides, they are a bit more all over the place, and they allow the reader to jump in and out as they desire. Just before I go on to, I'm just going to open something up here. Just before I go on to the next part of what I want to talk about, which is continuing this, I just want to know if anyone has any questions for me. If you're writing a book and you're stuck or anything like that, definitely let me know what it is you are stuck on. And I'm just going to open up this. Okay. Oh yeah, I also wanted to talk a little bit about genre and what types of books. Oh yeah, there are some really short books out there, you know, and I guess they serve a purpose. They're more like a booklet. But an author I spoke to today, for example, was saying she believes all books should be about 70,000 words to be taken seriously. But certainly I'll say that the opinions vary on that. I've read quite a few short ones. Some people love a short book because they feel like it's more doable. Other people feel like, oh, that can't be very valuable. So there are completely different ways of looking at it. Oh yes, so Tammy, I'm going to get onto that, because this is actually one of the secrets to getting your book written. So I'm glad you said that to remind me. The last step, by the way, in that I was going to finish with the fifth is actually genre. Yay, Alma, just brought that up. So picking your genre. The real reason you need to pick a genre is because you need to know where to put your book in Amazon, right? Because you have to categorize it, and you only get 2 categories. There are sort of loopholes where you re-categorize after those 2, and then it keeps you in the old ones and the new ones, but essentially you have 2 categories. So that's the main reason you actually need to pick categories, is so that when you sell the book, you know where to put it, right? That's really the basic reason. In terms of your objective, if we go back to that first step that I mentioned, with your objective, if you want to speak, as an example, you can equally get speaking gigs from a self-help book or a memoir, okay? Now, let me give you an example of how somebody might choose. One of my clients, I've got all my clients' books in a pile next to my computer, or most of them anyway. So this one here, Dauntless, Leadership Lessons from the Front Line, okay? This is one of my clients. Now, obviously she used to be in the army, right? And then she got into corporate leadership and did an absolutely amazing job. With this book, she is a great storyteller and has some fantastic stories from the army, like funny and well told, okay? Now, she thought about writing a memoir. However, she couldn't write a memoir because she was in intelligence in the army, and obviously there are secrets. Now, in order to tell a memoir, you're really picking a theme with a memoir, and telling everything about that theme. You're telling stories and taking the reader through every moment and keeping them with you in the moment. And I love Memoir, by the way. It's really my favorite. But the problem Rach had with that is that in order to tell Memoir and for it to make sense, she'd have to really talk about things that she actually could not talk about. So it actually wasn't logistically possible for her to write a memoir. So instead, she wrote a self-help book, and each chapter, each section has a story and then a lesson and then an application. So she tells the story, what's the lesson out of that story, and how do you apply that to the corporate world, because all the stories were from the army. So that was a brilliant way of her being able to pick stories. And of course, the stories are changing names, changing locations, changing details, but they get across the right point, right? And that way she's able to tell a story in isolation and doesn't have to reveal anything that's not allowed to be revealed. So there might be a situation for you in which writing a memoir would not make sense because of things you have to consider with people and situations, okay? So with self-help, but with a memoir, I should say, my ideal view of the memoir world is very narrow, and that is creative nonfiction is how I like memoirs to be written, which means they're nonfiction written in the style of a novel. You are the central character in the novel. The story is told through your eyes, and you keep the reader in the moment. Now that means that you never speak to the reader. You never address the reader. You never teach the reader anything. You are purely telling your story like you're a character in a novel. And that's actually why I love it. If you want to speak, by the way, you can still get speaking gigs through writing a memoir. That's no problem, because the audience gets to know you, or the reader gets to know you through the memoir. But with a memoir, you can't break character and address the reader, okay? I like to sort of say it as you don't want to remind the reader that they're reading a book. Like watching a great TV show when you're yelling at the TV, don't go over there. You know, you kind of forget, you know, you're watching TV, but you get lost in it. That's what you want your reader to experience with your book. So with self-help, it's the opposite. You are actually teaching the reader something. You're directly speaking to them. You're educating them. You're inspiring them. You're talking to them the whole book. And yes, you'll tell stories, but essentially you're there to teach the audience in a much more direct and obvious way. Does that help, Alma? And so with self-help, you can definitely tell stories and they will certainly enhance your book, but it's not 100% story like a memoir. It gives you flexibility. Now, having said that, what makes memoirs powerful is the fact that they are told as a beautiful story. I have cried, I think, in pretty much every one of my clients' memoirs because they really go into detail about things that have happened and how they felt. You know, it's incredible. I even cried. This is a client of mine whose daughter, we didn't do this cover, but my client of mine's daughter who was born with some severe disabilities, and it's really a great book. She's so honest and real in this. I actually cry just from reading the back, and this is an excerpt from the book and then a little bit about her. I cried just from reading that. So like, it's incredible. You can really move people with a memoir because they get lost in it. I'm going to say a memoir, can you turn a memoir into a self-help? Sort of. Do you mean if you've already written it, can you then change it? I actually have had a client go the other way. She started with a self-help she'd written the outline to with another book coach, came to me because she wasn't happy with that person. And when I read her outline and then when I heard her story, I thought in my head, this needs to be a memoir. But so I asked her some questions, and then I said, are you wedded to this outline? And she said, no. And I said, look, just for fun, can you follow my process and just see what comes up? She came back the next session and said, I need to write it as a memoir, don't I? And I said, yep. And she did write it as a memoir. So definitely you can really go either way. I would say if you've already written the memoir and you've decided you want to make it self-help, I'm assuming that's because you feel like you wanted to make stronger lessons or something. You know, you wanted to talk to the reader more and you didn't feel like it was strong enough. what you would really need to do is decide, is my self-help going to be story-led? And therefore you would pick, assuming your memoirs in chronological order, which I hope it is, you would pick the stories out, and then you'd have to chuck the rest, basically. And then you would add on to the end of each chapter, or around each story, before and after, however you want to structure each chapter, you would add those self-helpy lessons in there. Now, Tammy said something before which I wanted to touch on before. We have to finish exactly on time, so definitely chuck some questions in there if you've got them. One of the secrets to getting your book written, if you're still watching, Tammy, is don't edit as you go, don't research as you go, and keep a notebook next to the computer, and that's your book notebook. And so every time you are writing and you think, what's the name of that? Like even when I wrote my novel, because it was based on, inspired by real events, I would go, what was the name of that bar we went to? So I'd write in chapter 5, find the name of the bar in Antigua, right? And then I'd keep writing, and on the screen I'd say insert name of bar, and I'd put like a highlight and a little note on the side. Because if you edit as you go or you research as you go, you will not finish your book. Because if you're anything like me and everyone else on the planet, the minute you go out of that document and you go onto Google, you are down a rabbit hole. Because one minute you're researching something, and the next minute you're watching YouTube videos of some homeless guy giving another homeless guy pizza, and then you're crying, and then you've forgotten what you were even doing, right? So don't research as you go, and don't rewrite as you go. So in the industry, your first draft, they call it a shitty first draft for a reason. Everyone's first draft is pretty rubbish. I think Ernest Hemingway said the first draft of everything is shit, like that. But basically, don't edit as you go or rewrite too much as you go, because you'll find you'll keep writing and you can't stop. You can't stop trying to change the sentence or the paragraph because you're not happy with it. If you just keep going, and look, I do it to myself, I will start rewriting a sentence, and then I'll say, Cathryn, this is exactly what you tell people not to do, stop it. And then I keep writing and I say, fix it in the edit, fix it in the edit. Because you don't need to get it right, you just need to get it written. You can't edit a blank page. So the aim is, what I do with my clients is smash it out and get the book written, just a first draft. Now, in the last 2 minutes that we've got, I'll just briefly mention the different ways that you can work with me. A couple of times a year, I do a free book writing challenge. It's like a get started challenge that covers the things I really mentioned in this video today. And we do that for free a couple of times a year. And once that's over, you've got the chance, I guess, the opportunity to join our course, which we only open the doors to a couple of times a year. And the course gives you everything you need to know from book idea through to publishing. And I also do, on occasion, one-on-one coaching, and we have publishing packages. I have a team of experts who help me. So definitely PM me if you would like to talk about any of those things. I'm always here for you. I'm clearly not a massive salesperson. I don't spend the whole video pitching you, but those are the ways you can work with us. If you've already written your draft, we do have editing and publishing packages available as well. So please PM me. I'm grateful for you joining me. We're a bit late in the day for the Americans, so I might get some questions in the morning. I will check back, and just definitely message me with any questions. I hope what I said was helpful. I realize I speak very fast, but I was trying to get a lot out in a short time. So thank you so much for joining me. Send me a friend request, send me a message, and I'm here for you. See you soon.